Hey pregnant mums, Nisha at the 9 Month Club at www.the9monthclub.com. So in our next Should Ask question, we're talking about wheat, and I guess the question here should be, how does wheat affect my pregnancy? And it's not something that comes up particularly often because wheat is generally seen as a health food. We talk about whole grain being really good for lowering cholesterol and really good for the heart and things like that. But and wheat is positioned in the market as a whole grain. So we see boxes of cereal with the words whole grain goodness on them, and adverts telling us about how good whole grains are for our digestive system and things like that. But what they don't tell us is that wheat is not actually a whole grain. It's a manufactured grain, and this is really unfortunate. Now, there are two different forms of wheat. There are spelt, which doesn't go through all this processing, which is fine, but I'm talking about manufactured and processed wheat at the moment. So what happens during the processing of wheat is the wheat is harvested and then it goes through a very high refinement process. So what happens is it is processed at high temperature, and the wheat grain is basically just taken apart. So they remove endosperm, they remove the husk, they remove the wheat germ oil, they remove this, that and the other, and it completely denatures the wheat protein. So what you end up with is, once everything has been taken away, you end up with unbleached flour. Now this is treated at high temperatures, and then once it's been treated, everything is married back together synthetically to create whole grain. So what you're actually getting in your cereal box is a manufactured synthetic chemical compound, not a natural whole grain food substance. And this is the problem, because your body doesn't recognise that wheat whole grain manufactured product as a food. It recognises it as a toxin. So this does two things. Number one, it causes a massive insulin response. So wheat, once it's processed, it basically has the same properties as sugar. So your body just sees it, it doesn't see it as, oh, this is a whole grain manufactured grain. It sees it as what it enters the body and what it breaks it down to, and that is a sugar. So from eating wheat, you're going to get a big insulin fluctuation, and insulin is the hormone that metabolizes sugar and breaks it down and stores it as fat. So the insulin will rush in, it will metabolize the sugar, it will break it down, and it will store it as fat on your body. Once that sugar is broken down, you will follow it with an insulin crash or an insulin trough, where the insulin then declines very rapidly and you get a sugar crash, which is going to have all the implications of completely destroying your metabolism. It's going to make you feel nauseous, it's going to make you feel tired, it's going to make you crave more sugar or more wheat or other junk food, and it's going to make you feel very irritable. So all of these things are not good for us during pregnancy when we're feeling quite sensitive anyway. Okay, so secondly, because wheat is a toxin, because it's a manufactured and processed grain and it is a toxin, the body will store it within the fatty layer. And what happens is, we've talked about this process a few times before in these videos, but basically a toxin gets stored into the fatty layer. So you lay down body fat in order to store that toxin within your body. Then your body is going to divert water into the toxin to dilute it enough so it's not harmful to your body, and you're going to end up dehydrating your baby, your body and your cells. So for the second reason, it's going to dehydrate you and it's going to act as a pollutant to your system and slow you down. So basically we should avoid all wheat during pregnancy. Now, the last thing that I wanted to point out is wheat is known for fluid retention and causes pelvic edema during pregnancy. Now, pelvic edema really is just pelvic water retention, but it's fluid within the tissues around the pelvis and around the birth canal. Now, these tissues become congested because of the wheat toxin. They become congested, they divert water, they become very very swollen, and it limits the amount of space that your baby has to grow and develop. But particularly when it comes to labour, it will limit the amount of space that you have to give birth. So your birth canal is going to be narrowed, you're going to be pushing against resistance, the baby's going to have to struggle to move down the birth canal, and it's going to make labour a whole lot more difficult for you. Now, there was a study done by a lady called Gary Moffa, who's a very well-respected authority in obstetrician in the UK, who did a study on celiacs who are allergic to wheat and cannot have any gluten present in their diet, and I'm celiac myself, and people that had it regularly in their diet. And it was found that celiacs had much shorter, much easier labours. So please eliminate all wheat from your diet, or if you can't do it completely, at least during the last trimester of your pregnancy, cut it out completely, because it's going to make your birth a whole lot easier for you. Okay, I'll see you in